Hello, I'm Martin Howe, CEO and founder of Tech4, and I'm here with Jane Alexander, Chief Digital Information Officer at Cleveland Museum of Art. For many years now, museums have been employing technologies to help their audiences engage with their collections in more meaningful and accessible ways. The Cleveland Museum of Art has been at the forefront of this process and have implemented a number of solutions over many years to evaluate, test, and deliver cutting-edge programs, collecting industry awards along the way. Far from resting on their laurels, Jane and her team relentlessly drive forward, embracing the latest technologies to deliver even more interactive and accessible content. Hi, Jane. Maybe you can start us off by giving us a quick overview of your museum.
Absolutely. Well, the Cleveland Museum of Art was founded in 1916. And one of the things that really attracted me to the museum is their mission, that is to create transformative experiences through art for the benefit of all the people forever, which is a pretty lofty mission. But when I started there in 2010, I was like, yes, this is what museums are about. And so it truly guides everything we do. Along with in 2017, we created a new strategic plan that really focused it on digital interpretation. The other thing about our museum is that it has 61,000 records spanning 6,000 years. It's an encyclopedic collection. It's one of the top collections in the country, and I would say the world. And my job as Chief Digital Information Officer is to create innovative, dynamic digital experiences to really give people tool sets for connecting with our collection and being able to understand how to look at art. Because based on our mission, we truly believe that art, there's something in art for everyone. And that is really what the museum believes in doing through its exhibitions, its programs, but definitely through its digital integration.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of experiencing GalleryOne about a year after it was first opened. It was, hailed as a flagship of how to integrate technologies. And it was really, really impressed how seamlessly quite complex technologies were presented to an audience and how readily everybody just adapted to it. How did that gallery come about? What was the underlying process to get that?
Sure. Well, as I said, I started in 2010. The building project began in 2007, and the Maltas gave a gift to the museum to really think about a space that would take away the parts of a museum that intimidate, the intimidation of a museum to the average person. You know, you might walk in a museum, people can say, oh, can I help you? But if you don't really have an art history degree, you don't even know how to answer that question. So, and the other thing was, so they were working on multiple ways, but when I joined in 2010, to me, it's rare that museums are given space, master artworks, and money to think about how to solve this problem. So we started over to really take some risk and work with the evaluation team. And the evaluation team had found out that while the museum was closed, they, most people thought museums are a little dusty, a little boring. If I don't have an art history degree, what do I do? It's a lot of don't talk, don't touch, don't speak loudly. And that's not really what our museum's about. And so we wanted to create a space that people felt they would be attracted to. They would engage and start a relationship with our collection. And then through the other spaces, really get tool sets to understand, how to look at art, how to understand materials, how to understand composition, how to understand narrative. So that was the goal. And then, just to explain, GalleryOne is really four and a half components. One is The first space is now Artland Studio, which really starts your relationship with the collection and is really not about the metadata. It's about just like looking and creating with this art. The second space, which we call Artland's Exhibition, which originally was just GalleryOne proper, is about using technology to really understand, you know, the purpose of an object, the symbolism, how to understand symbolism of an object, but without knowing those words. You don't even need to know those words. It's just like how to look closer and dive deeper. And then the last space, which I think we've been copied all over the world, and definitely in Asia multiple times, is our collection wall. And that was about having every object that's on view at all times show up in this sort of piece of artwork at itself and show different themes. It might be, you know, portraits, or it could be furniture, or it could be Asian, or it could be objects by female artists, or objects by African American artists. And by just looking at this wall, you could just touch it. And that object, you know, we set it up, you know, and this was sort of a project from our back end, our original back end sort of thinking about it, that you could start in ancient Egyptian objects and get to contemporary photography simply by standing and sort of scrolling and going through all our objects that are in a certain year, all our objects in a certain department, all our objects in a certain gallery. This was a great way, because from far back, you could sit and watch this unbelievable display, and anything you saw, you could be like, aha, I want to go see that now. And then you could touch the wall and it would go to your fourth component, your ArtLens app, which would have every object in the entire museum on view, and it would show you the object you saved, and it would take you directly to that object. And so that way we were really thinking about personalization, about, you know, something, you know, a live map that at any point you could say, you know, find me, and it would show you where you are. But also narratives and videos that were not just your classic academic video about an object, but it brought in community voices. Like we have a very famous painting of rowers, and we actually had a Olympic rowing coach do one of the videos. So it was, multiple ways into the collection, and because you would find something that really spoke to you was really our goal in that space. And that goal has never changed. We just keep iterating on making it more seamless and more about, it's not about technology for technology's sake, it's about the art and more ways to just get into the art quicker and faster. Yeah.
So I think it was around 3 years ago, you took GalleryOne and added these other spaces and features to it. And quite some changes to technology and the back-end infrastructure too that we'll get onto shortly. But what was the main driver to make that quite large change at that time? Was that guest-driven? Was that based on feedback you were getting?
Well, yes. I mean, a couple of things. I mean, we always had, when we launched GalleryOne in 2012, one of the reasons we had started over was that technology, hardware changes quickly. And we were kind of, when I came in, they were sort of doing, you know, big touch tables and lots of touch screens. And my feeling was, you know, that it was 2010, you know, more and more people had iPhones, you know, in their pocket, you know, and you know, iBeacons were being used, and you know, AI and AR, you know, were really being talked about. So I said that we really needed to focus on our back-end systems to think about this new iteration. The other thing is we thought it was very successful, but we really didn't want people to think of it as a kid space, because it's not. It is truly intergenerational, and in the first space, which was Artland Studio, is Artland Studio now, which was Studio Play originally. It was more of a playroom. It's things that you've seen at multiple museums, a very nice one, but we changed it to truly think of games that our director, who has a PhD in art history from the top institutions in the world, you know, is as engaged as a 5-year-old would be. So we have a big wall where your body becomes a magnifying glass, and you are already seeing this painting, 20 feet, digital wall. But now you're walking around and it's zooming in where you're walking around. And then if you're doing it with, someone you're there with, your parent or your partner, you make a bigger zoom. And thus, when you go into the galleries, and I've seen this, people will be like, oh, there's a painting, but they've noticed the little dog, or they noticed the certain like Easter eggs hidden throughout the little symbolism that's there. I mean, you've gotten this bigger connection. So you already feel comfortable when you get into the galleries because you know our artwork. So we really changed it around to really think about, and that was hard because people loved just coming to the space. Interesting what you say about
blending technology and getting it to add value and not distract. We did a far smaller project a few years back at the Gilcrease Museum in Tulsa, and we learned very early on that we were making the mistake of encouraging guests to look through the technology at the collection when actually the reason they're there is to see the collection. The technology is supporting and enhancing that process. So we had a very similar light bulb moment early on, but it can add huge value, but it is that process of understanding where and why. So
can I say one thing? I did want to say one thing to that. The other thing in our second iteration was I have now both one graduated college and the other is in it, but at the time in 2012, they were both younger, a lot younger. And I started to see when the youngest would take my phone and play Angry Birds. And I would be like, who taught you that? Because she didn't have a phone. She's like, no one taught me it. And I started to really think about digital natives. It's interesting, museums, it's very nervous to create technology. And we always try to build it for me. We're worried about our 55 plus people. But I said, let's rethink this. Let's think about how digital natives approach technology. And if it's designed well, first of all, there's really no interface. There's no real instructions. If it's designed well, you just start and you play it and you figure it out and your brain goes, aha, and then you kind of start over and you do it, if it's designed well. So I was like, let's do that, because we have these beautiful, really well-designed touch screens, but people still get nervous and overthink it and overread it, and you're not getting into the art. And my whole thing was get into the art right away, not into figuring out how does this work.
I totally understand and agree. I understand quite well. Have a good sense of what's behind the scenes to make this work. How do you go about building such actually technically very complex systems, ensuring they're robust, resilient, as well as user-friendly?
You mean, well,
all the infrastructure.
Great, yeah, that's my favorite thing. I mean, well, it's funny because when people have heard about GalleryOne now, or ArtLens Gallery all over. And if they haven't seen it, a lot of times I've seen little notes. Even I think there was an article you guys did and someone was like, oh, Disneyland, distraction or something. People sort of make reference that it's just gadgets. And I take such offense at that because I personally don't like technology when it's just out there. And so we started over. Really, the biggest work that I was most proud of when GalleryOne opened in 2012 was we started off and I said, the museum during the building project had made digitizing the collection a priority. And the goal was to be 100% digitized, which we're going to actually be there this year. And so we also had just purchased their first digital asset management system. and we were working on what we should do with our collection management system, and we had a new website just like 6 months after I arrived there that was launching when they hadn't figured out how to make an online collection. And so all these things were coming, it was this perfect storm, like no collection management system, a new digitized digital asset, this space that we didn't know what it was going to be, and a website. And so I was really, and it drove people, I think, a little bit crazy because, I think when you work with different vendors, they just kind of want to make their own CMS. And as we all know, content is out of date, and people in museums who wear multiple hats, once a project's done, they're not thinking about updating that project all the time. So I decided that we needed to create a back-end system that portrayed what goes on in a museum every day. Like, this was my first art museum, and I had no idea that within 1 week, 200 artworks could move on and off display in a museum, that they went on loan, that they came back, that they went to conservation, that curators have new research, that the date changes, the title changes, the artist changes, that didactics by education and interpretation are added and written. There was all this stuff that happens just in the normal week of a museum. And so why don't we use that content, one source of truth? So we really, we've refined it. We've always are working on it. But the initial space worked for the wall and the app, that the digital asset management system worked with the interactives, and it would pull all the metadata that was needed for that interactive. So like the wall needed 4 certain pieces of metadata, and then other games needed more, and the app had more fields, but there was one source of truth. And we are at a point now that, which we did a whole we constantly are iterating, but another upgrade when we released our open access project in January of 2019. And that's when we really were like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it so that people can have the highest res images or just a JPEG for a class. And also, we're going to give you all our metadata. Every single piece of metadata is open access, Creative Commons 0. And so we constantly have done this back end, but when you have so many interactives and a collection online and open access and an API and a GitHub, like those would all be out of date constantly. But everything internally updates every 10 minutes. So it also changes the culture where it was more conservative, and curators were more used to publications. They don't want anything up online until it's like, been, gone through 2 years of proofing and looking at and everything in which you make a book. And as we know, you publish a book and then stuff is out of date anyway. But digital, they can put what they know up. And when they research and find something else up, it's updated and it goes out to every game in 10 minutes. And there is, like, even on our collection online, like, this is to the best of our knowledge. The research on our collection will be done long after all of us leave this planet. So to me, it had to be always one source of truth. It had to be accurate to date, and it had to be able to be flexible, and that enough so that when we thought about a new interactive, we thought about who's the audience we're trying to reach in this, and what are the learning goals of this interactive. We didn't have to start to spend time on like, well, how are we going to do this and do that? We really got to do the stuff that's more fun, like really figure out, well, what does that interactive look like? And I think that's why Artland's Gallery at this point has a lot of different successful, I call them games, but moments that appeal to different people in different ways, because we're trying to reach different audiences or different levels and bring them into our collection.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of very significant takeaways in what you've just explained for us. Certainly, the technology needs to be up to the job, but one source of truth, like any good data management system, is obviously crucial. But the point you touched on as well, which brought back some fond memories, was the cultural change. understanding the curatorial team need to have confidence to kind of let current information be current truth. So yeah, I totally understand that. So you're dealing with many kind of all aspects of the enterprise, not just the technology and the visitors, but also helping to keep track of the collection and the cultural change to make that more open, which I'll come on to later. I think that's quite outstanding what you're doing there. Staying with the technology side a little bit at the moment, then, so you will by this year, then, an amazing achievement, will have digitized all of your collection. What's the process? What's the process for that? That sounds like quite a lot of work.
Well, as I said, when I got to the museum, we have a photography department that was working on, because all the objects had to be taken. We had a $320 million renovation, a building by Vignoli added to our Breuer building in our 1916 building. So it was a big project, and every artwork had to go off view and go back on view. And so they were smart enough to really think about, let's photograph this. And they've done an amazing job. When I started to get involved, as you know, once you start to do interactives and you realize it's really about the record. And when you, I can't even tell you, in photographing like a tea set, when they're accessioned, you have a tray and a teapot and a creamer and a sugar bowl, and then the sugar bowl has a top and the creamer has a top and the coffee has a top, and so and the tray, so you kind of have four real things, but each of those things have two parts. And so how do you photograph it, but then how do you display it on your website so that it makes sense that I can see the whole tea set? And so when we first started, you would see like 6 tea sets instead of really understanding how to photograph for each of those components. And that's why we're almost there, is we wrote a whole process on how do you digitize our collection so that it is set up and available, because we also accession objects every quarter. How are those objects not immediately available on our website? And so we have a whole workflow that is part of working with collections and my department and all our applications that we oversee to do it right and really do standards and try to do best practice so that, again, whatever we make up, we can sort of get access to the content we have. So that's a big part of what we're doing. And it's interesting because as we go along, there are always one-offs about our collection. And you have to remember, when they started accessioning and making records for these collections, they were on index cards. So people would make their own kind of rules about how to think about a special artwork and a special collection. So I have to say, I've learned so much about a museum collection, and we've had to also, again, shift we had a bunch of objects that had our accession numbers in reverse order because they were a certain gift collection in the 50s. And I couldn't really get an answer of why do we need to do that, because it was messing up things when we tried to do projects. And it ends up, really no one could answer it. It's just that person at the time thought it would be a way that you would always know, oh, this is a Hannah gift or this is a something gift. But there's different ways of doing it that makes sense in relational databases. So we've really, it is like the hardest part is kind of moving the museum to say, like, this is an okay change. This will make everybody's life easier. And they have trusted sort of that way of thinking. And I have to say, it's improved data management for everyone in the museum. And even, when our museum closed in March for a couple of months and everyone went home, because of our analytics and our data management, we're able to show what collections are being added to, what all these projects, like, what dates are still missing, what, every field and everything. We can draw reports on them constantly, and we can see what departments are working on them. And that's really was helpful for when people had to kind of shift their gears and think about what they were working on.
That consistency takes time to bed in, doesn't it? Moving on to something you touched on earlier, that I'm hugely impressed by, is your open access initiative you launched last year, which appears to me at least like you've opened all the doors and taken down all the walls of the museum and just let everybody get to everything. It's quite remarkable. What was the motivation behind that initiative?
Well, as I said, it was something that I was really, I believe in our mission and that we're a free museum, and making the collection accessible to all means digitally as well. And I was really impressed with the Rijksmuseum and the Met. They had gone open access, but I was also, again, thinking about the visitor experience. It was very important that we made, if we were going to launch, we made provenance and citations and didactics, all of which were not open access in the other initial programs of the other museums, that we would make it all API driven from the beginning, and that there would be workflows so that every time we added artworks, or every year more artworks would be added to our open access. And I will tell you, it was scary to people, and I did have to present it to the board. I will say that my director, Bill Griswold, has always been a huge, he sees the future. He gets why this is not about technology. It's about the museum. I mean, as you know, we have one of the top collections in the world. Right now, while museums are just opening and they've been closed, it's sort of, we are at the same plane. We're not in Cleveland. We're out there in the world. Our collection is accessed, more than ever during the last 6 months. And that is because we have made it easy for people to not only zoom in and look, but have content added to it daily, and said, yes, use this for your classes, use it for your studies, use it for your business. If it's in open access, this is your art to use as you would like. And people got really scared that it would take away the credibility of the collection, but it was the same kind of scaredness they had when we were going to open up Artlands. And I'm glad we did this in 2019, because I will say, because we did it, we did another big iteration and new upgrade to our API. And when we all went home in March, it was immediately, the entire museum is online, and the ideas and the things, people immediately wanted all our exhibitions online, done within the week. We could do it, because we had it all in place. It was just a matter of saying, oh, we can do that. We were making all these videos. They were open access. We could immediately work on these artworks and put them out there with the curators. Were doing these things from home. I mean, I think it took, I hate to say this, but it kind of took the pandemic for people to recognize, wow, this makes my life better. This makes my life a curator, an educator, a conservationist, a conservator. This is useful to all of us. It's not that digital project.
Yeah, and there's been some great examples recently that you've deployed that really put that to good use. All the groundwork that you've done over the years, the ArtLens AI, for instance. Maybe just talk us through some examples of those.
Oh, sure. Well, I will say also, I think every digital and technology department has been challenged since their museums have gone online. So our work days became, which were long, even longer. But we did want to do some things that we thought were valuable, and it was an opportunity. We had been working on this first time exhibition scholarly exhibition that was going to use digital. And actually it was supposed to open this month originally. It's going to open next November. Well, we were super excited. We were working on it. And then all of a sudden, you know, we all went home and we thought, let's think about, you know, what are audiences? You know, we all work at a museum so that we can be around the art. What are other people, you know, we all did think people need art more than ever. So we created a couple of different tool sets. And the first thing we created was Art Lens for Slack, which I just have to say, if you have a work group, we use Teams mostly, but my work group, we made a Slack, we made an app, and it's been very, very successful. And what it does is it gives you a morning kind of prompt that has to do with what's going on. Like today's prompt is about last night's debates. And then you pick you know, it gives you one of three choices, and then it brings up an artwork in our collection, and you can shuffle through, and then you pick the artwork you want, and then it's sort of, you write a caption, and people get really clever. And that's it. It takes like 1 minute out of your morning. At the end of the day, you get this notification, and it says, you know, today's exhibition is, you know, debates, or whatever they call it. And then everyone who played that day, it shows the image they picked from our collection and their caption. And they're like hysterical. And we've got our teams that were all working all from home. And I didn't even know how clever and funny certain people were. It was, and we brought other people from the museum in that we were like, join this channel if you want to join this. So we've had, MIT Museum was doing it. Digital tech companies have been playing. I mean, it's being played all over the world. And so that was one thing. And then again, that was easy for us to think about because we had the back end. The other thing that we also wanted to do is create these dashboards with the open access, because our collection online, you can see what people's favorites are, and there are no surprises. But we were looking at our Wikipedia and Wikimedia and what people were using, and it was completely different. And we thought, this is really helpful for other museums to use and to see the breadth of how the collection's being used. And then our last thing that we just did was the fall started, we created it in the summer, but you know, people were hoping to really be full-time at work. You know, teachers were hoping to be, and students were hoping to be back at college or back in the classroom. And, you know, so we created this thing called Share Your View. And you take a picture from your view, and it could be outside or whatnot, and you upload it to our website, and it matches you. And at this point, I would love to show you the gallery of all people. It matches you with our collection, and they're hysterical. And sometimes they're like, wow, perfect. And sometimes they're, you know, they're just funny. What you see what it picked up. And you can also always go to explore the artwork. And it brings you right in. But the other thing that's exciting about this is we built it in this way with our API that we can bring in the Met's open access. We can bring in the Rijks. We can bring in the Smithsonian. We can make this activity really be for all museums, you know, to use. It doesn't have to be just the CMA collection. We just sort of prototyped it right away. But wouldn't it be nice that we all as museums are using our collections to make art matter and make people be able to think, you know, have some moments during these times where there's a lot of unknowns.
I really love the sentiment. It shows big picture thinking. I've played with Share Your View quite a lot recently, and it's fun. It's fun just taking a picture you've taken and let artificial intelligence effectively make the match for you. It's good fun. So how do you talked about the evaluations you were doing from the initial GalleryOne and going forward. How do you measure the success of these new deployments, these more online ones?
Yeah, well, another thing we've done a lot since we've been home is really worked on our live dashboards. I mean, we have, because all of our programming is virtual. We have, you know, videos that go out each week. We have art projects that go out each week. We have classes that are on every day. And we, you know, are these working? Are people looking at them? Are they getting what they want from them?
Right.
So every project we do, we first of all, it has learning goals, because right from GalleryOne, from the beginning, I learned that everyone wants every project to achieve every goal, and you're not going to have an awesome project then. You have to really decide what is the audience and what are their learning goals. And then we set up analytics and didactics, and we are like never before reviewing them at this cross-departmental weekly meeting. And it looks at the social media, it looks at every activity we did, what are people playing, what are they not? You know, and sometimes we're kind of disappointed. We're like, why did no one look at that video? We love that video. Do we not market it right? Is it not the right time for it? Is it hidden on the website? You know, so we are in a different mode of weekly evaluation. It's not a formal evaluation. It's a, you know, iterate, look at it, let's try this, you know, because it's, as you know, everybody's on their devices, and people also have Zoom fatigue, and they're tired of being on their devices. So what kind of things can we really do that are helpful, and where do we really focus our energies to give our visitors what they need during this time?
It seems that, again, all the background and hard work you've done under the hood has given you this agility to be able to review quickly, change, and maybe even experiment a little on the fly.
That's interesting you said that, because I was just talking to our deputy director and chief philanthropy officer, and I was saying, we can experiment a little more right now. You know, we have this opportunity to just do things. I mean, museums come from a formal background. We're really trying to make things accessible to all, inclusive design. I mean, these are important things, but we also do things how we're doing them, and everyone also has lots to do. So how do we experiment and understand and learn something from it, you know? And that's really what we're trying to, as a group, say, well, let's try this differently. You know, we did this, it's okay. We don't know to keep doing it, you know? And that's scary. That's okay. We just got used to this. Wait, you want us to now do a different type of video series, you know? Or you want, you know, we're now trying to think of another sort of tool set that would engage people from home. Just like the AI share your view, we like to think of different ways that are, you know, quick, fun. But, you know, I don't know, when you played it, did you find yourself going to the object page and looking at that object, and now you're in some other world, maybe watching that video?
Yeah. So as well as giving you the ability to be agile and experiment, you haven't got here by accident. Clearly, this is a long, deep and well thought out strategy over many years of refinement and consistency and cultural change, all those elements. What's next on this roadmap? Let's take a peek into your future, if you will.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think after the first GalleryOne was completely built and stuff, and then we realized we were going to do a second iteration. In my past careers, I always have loved, I've most of the time had a job that's not a position that wasn't there before. And then I like to get it up and going and making sure it works, and then I go to the next project. This is the first time that I've stayed for part 2 and now part 3, you know. Yeah. And I think it's because we as a team have really put so much energy into iterating on our back ends and thinking about, how do we build things so that we're flexible for the future? So I do think about what is the museum of the future, and I do believe, I do see how art is more important than it's ever been before, as I said. And so, right now it's a little tricky because we're opening up Artland's Gallery because our museum is open to safe guidelines. And though our programming and anything interactive in tours and everything else is all online through 2021 right now. So we have to keep thinking creatively for these online tools. And we spend a lot of time just trying to listen what people, we listen to what are the needs. And then we also look at what everyone's doing, and not just museums. We get most of our inspiration from anything it could be. And it's like, wow, that was cool how, what we find ourselves, how we find ourselves engaging and having these moments of wonderment and zen and just peace. And so we will continue to do that. The other thing, as I mentioned, our Revealing Krishna, Journey to Cambodia's Sacred Mountain exhibition, which is going to be this amazing first time ever where we're having a scholarly exhibition that is has multiple digital tool sets to understand, including, most people don't even know where Phnom Da is or where Cambodia is. And so there's this whole immersive interactive to just like go down the water canals to Phnom Da at the very beginning. And to put this context of this conservation project and Cambodia and Cleveland working together on these two Krishnas, the conservation of these two Krishnas, it would be a hard project for most people to understand. We're making it so that multiple age groups and different backgrounds and, really look at Asian art and conservation and Cambodia in a whole different way. So that is what we also are working on. So we now are working on site and online and a first time exhibition. So we have a lot on our plate. It's also a hard time, as you know, for museums right now because revenue's down. And so it's a small group, but I think everyone on the team has the same passion to make these things. They believe these things bring something to everyone's life. And that's, I think, what keeps us all motivated.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely, they do. And again, all the groundwork and foundations you've built allow you to do these exciting, interesting, and very highly accessible initiatives with smaller teams. So you can do more with less, or more with more when the time comes, hopefully.
Yeah, it's small is good. A little bigger be nicer. But yeah, we've all been in those meetings with 35 people and nothing gets done. So,
there is that. Yeah, there is that.
But I mean, it all comes back to, and I just want to sort of end with this, is that this wouldn't be possible if our institution really didn't have an amazing encyclopedic masterwork top collection with, amazing research, top curators, top conservation team, top education team. I mean, that's what allows it not to be just these digital things. It's about bringing those things to life, and in non-academic ways, in really, different ways. Some is spiritual, some is artistic, some is motivating, and some is academic. There is a lot of amazing academic research. So that's what I like about it.
I love it. I love the way that through these processes, you can touch on everyone who may or may not have an interest in their first encounter, and start to bring them in to understand the collection. It's Fantastic, fantastic work. Well done. Congratulations. Jane, that's probably all we have time for. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for being so open and sharing.
Much.
I really enjoyed it. And congratulations once again. Let me take this opportunity to thank blooloop for bringing us together. And thanks again, Jane. Looking forward to seeing more online over the coming weeks and months.
Yes, thank you so much, and best wishes, and thank you, blooloop.